white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
On today's episode, we look back on last weekend's defeat against Forest Green Rovers, which makes it 1 win in 8 for the Blues, and look ahead to the battle of the two managers fighting to keep their jobs as United take on Bristol Rovers this weekend. How's it going, Dan?
Can I just say, I think you faded that in and out lovely there.
Well, it's automatic, you see. I've got it all prepared, you see. The problem is I've got to try and fit in my introduction perfectly into that bit. I don't want to leave too much of a gap at the end.
No, it was just right today.
Got it right this time.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, just not very enjoyable going watching United at the moment, is it really?
Not really, no.
There's a few positives to take from the games right now. I think it's very fair to say. We've got lots of today.
You did say there's few, not there's a few there, didn't you?
Yeah. I said few.
just to confirm for the listeners.
Yes, indeed. Right, well, let's get straight into it, Dan. There's a lot to cover today. Straight into the news. First up, it's another bit of contract news, isn't it? It's following on from John Mellish's contract extension last week. Club captain Callum Guy has now penned a new deal with the club to keep him at Brunton Park until the summer of 2023, with a 1-year option also on top of that in the club's favour. So effectively, till the summer of 2024. Guy hasn't really hit the heights in terms of his performances yet this season, Dan, has he, that he had last year? But he's still a quality player, isn't he? And getting him tied down for this longer deal is good news, isn't it? He'll probably admit himself he's not been as good this season. We don't know if his head was turned by the alleged interest in him or whether he's wanted to get the deal done. But you'd like to think that now he's got the security, because I know he's got a young family, a couple of young kids and that. He's got at least a couple of years, if not 3. He can knuckle down and hopefully get back to what we saw last season. Absolutely. So former Derby, Bradford and Blackpool player. He's played 61 times for an all-competition. Still not scored yet, has he? In fact, I had a look before and he's only scored 1 goal his entire career. And I think that was in the old pizza trophy for possibly for Blackpool or Bradford. I'm not sure which one.
So he's not scored in his career.
No, exactly. He's not scored. Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, so no, good news to get him tied down. I mean, we all know there's going to be a release clause somewhere in there, but hopefully, as we're rewarded with him a decent length deal, it should be quite a high amount. You'd hope on that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Next bit of news, bit of a surprise bit of news. This one, wasn't it? Really. The club have confirmed that they've accepted an FA charge after the Sutton game. So this basically is in relation to Manny Mampala's first yellow card down at Sutton, isn't it? When it happened, it was when you watch it back now, it's one of those ones where he's sort of stretching for it and the player really kicks the bottom of his foot as much as anything. And there's a big overreaction. There's a little bit of handbags. I think one of their players goes flying in the air because he gets shoved, but there's nothing major in it. I mean, an FA charge for that? I mean, I don't know what was said in the melee, but it didn't look much, did it?
No, I was on that side at the game when it happened, and it was just 2 folk going for the ball in the air. One's come off worse, and everyone's ran in, and that was it.
Yeah.
It's something and nothing, really. I mean, I personally don't think it was a second yellow anyway, so...
Yeah, well, this was in relation to the first yellow, wasn't it?
Oh, sorry, the first, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was much of nothing, really, wasn't it, really? It just sounds like a busybody referee. He's got nothing better to do than put a thing in, isn't it? But there you go. The club have accepted the charge, and they've got to give a written response, I think, don't they, to the charge as well, it's one of those ones, we'll probably get a £500 fine or something.
I saw, was it Mansfield and someone else got fined? I think it was £1,000 each.
Was it £1,000? Well, there you go.
Yeah, so...
Bit frustrating, but never mind. And final bit of news, Dan. This one we were following the other day, weren't we? The reserves were in action again in the Central Cup. Not quite as successful as they were against Fleetwood, were they? I think it's fair to say.
No, they got absolutely hammered 5-0 by half time.
Yeah.
But when you look at the team Preston put out, it was ridiculous, really, wasn't it?
I've got a list of some of the names here they've had in their team because essentially what you got to remember is the Championship clubs, it's international break this week. So there's a lot of their players who are international players and players come back with injuries and stuff like that who they want to get minutes under their belts, don't they, and keep their fitness levels up. I mean, this is some of the players. Declan Rudd, goalkeeper, I think he was at Villa and Norwich for a while. Joe Rafferty, I think he's played like 250 games for Rochdale and about another 100 odd for Preston. Paul Huntington, obviously, 250 appearances for Preston alone in his career. Scott Sinclair, he's been sold for millions of pounds in his career. Brad Potts, we all know well, he's had a very good career so far. Tom Barkhusen and Josh Murphy. I mean, there's a couple more players in there as well who've got a decent level of first team experience for Preston. And then you look at our back line. What was it? Barnett, Ellis, Kilsby and Leslie, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, 3 of those are second year YTS and one of them's a midfielder filling in at left back, basically. So a real sort of tough afternoon for them. But the interesting thing that came out of this, wasn't it, Dan, that we had a trialist keeper playing for us rather than Lucas Jensen. Adam Smith, the former Leicester Forest Green and Yeovil stopper, was in nets for us. He had a very busy afternoon, as we mentioned there.
Yeah, he made, I know it sounds bad, he had 5 put past him, but he did make a triple save from a penalty in the second half. So
he made a couple of other good saves as well. And when you read Gavin Skelton's comments, and from a few people who were sort of listening to the game on Preston North End, I think had an audio commentary for it, and also people who went to it, they all say actually we didn't play that badly. We had chances. So.
Yeah, I think we did have chances, but it was just Preston have obviously eased off after half time, haven't they?
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, so I would not read much into that score, really. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just one of those things, isn't it? It's just bad luck. I think any other time, if we played that game, we probably would have been a much tighter contest. They would have had a weaker side out, Preston, I think. So,
yeah. I think we've got Morecambe away left to play in mid-November.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Okay, then let's get on to the match review bit then, Dan. Another game, another defeat. It's now 1-8 for the Blues. They're comfortably beaten by, I've got to say, a very impressive and very, very, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? They just look like they knew what they were, the jobs were, didn't they? Forest Green Rovers. Really well-drilled outfit. Organised,
well-drilled, solid. Yeah. And they're going up probably as champions, aren't they?
Yeah, they look a side that really has got a bit of quality about them.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen them on the Quest highlights a couple of times, and they just look slick, you know. And was it last season when Matt got injured and they dropped off a little bit? Yeah. You know, and it's obvious how key he is to them. So, but
at the same time, Matt Steams has come in this season for them, hasn't he? And I think he's top scorer in the league. And it just goes to show. You can find a player every now and then. So I mean, it was better than Sutton. I'll say that.
Oh
that's working from a very, very low bar, though, isn't it? That's the problem.
Incredibly low.
I mean, limbo wise, you're lying on the floor.
Up until Forest Green scored, we were probably the better team in terms of creating chances, but we didn't take them. You know, there was a couple went whizzing across the 6-yard box. You know, and they did get away, got one, made it 2 very quickly, and then we all knew it was uphill from then. But at half time, that game, before they even scored, actually, we could easily have been 2-0, 2-1 up from the chances that had been in the game.
Oh yeah, we had some good chances. I mean, we had that pressure on, and Young probably should have scored. I mean, you've got to say it's a great save from their keeper, point blank range, because Young's basically reacted to it was a cross in from Guy, wasn't it? And Mellish has done a really clever flick on, and Young's just done what he can to flick it towards goal, and their keeper's made a great save. And I don't think there's much else Toure could have done really from the rebound. He just had to try and backheel it, and the defenders swarmed him as quickly as possible. And other than that, you obviously got the 2 chances for Dickinson. I think the first one, I've watched back, because if you go on the iFollow, you can actually re-watch the match with the radio commentary on it. And on that, James felt that Dickinson was shooting on his first chance. I don't think he was.
From where I was in the B stand, it was more of a cross.
It was a cross trying to find Toure, but Toure, if Toure got any further, he'd been offside. He basically had to hold his run. And there wasn't much he could have done. The second one's a shot. He just drags it a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Frustrating thing. It's a tighter angle though, so it's a more difficult chance. But yeah, it just from that point when you've missed those chances, you start to think, well, Forest Green are going to sort themselves out.
The sort of chances you miss when you're not playing well.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, if we'd been Forest Green, we'd have put at least one of them in.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's the prime example with the second goal, which we'll get into shortly. But I mean, the first goal for Forest Green, I mean, it's far too soft for Dinzey, isn't it? I mean, he had a good start to the game. I thought he looked quite solid, and he looked like he was, good at the physical side of it. But I've watched it back now, and the corner comes in, and he gets a bit bullied by Matt. Matt gets ahead of him in the side foot in, but if you actually watch it carefully, he's ball watching. He's watching Toure.
I also think Forest Green had done a quick bit of homework because those, Matt and Dinzey were in oceans of space on their own. Yeah. Like Forest Green runners had dragged the rest of the defence away, and a veteran seasoned striker like Matt is going to get, if he's got first goal on a lad making his proper league debut.
Thank you very much, isn't it? It's
yeah. There's only one winner, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, if you watch it back as well, what Dinzey is doing as well is he's watching Toure and Ibu Adams, who are having a bit of sort of a pulling match in the middle, and Toure does enough to sort of drag Adams away from the ball.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think Dinzey is so busy watching that he doesn't realise that Matt is getting ahead of him, and it's an easy finish, isn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Second goal, I think Dinzey maybe gets a bit too tight on Matt with this as well. He maybe needs to sort of stand off him a little bit there. I mean, that's maybe him panicking, knowing he's an experienced player and feeling he has to get tight every time. But it's a lovely flick from Matt to play 1-2 with Nicky Cadden. He's a player, me and you both really like. And I mean, Feeney's maybe a little bit slow to close him down, but it's probably been overly critical there because it's a hell of a finish, isn't it?
I think the strike was worthy of a goal regardless of any little mistakes by our defenders.
I mean,
I was sort of sat on the angle of it in the B stand and it was rapier-like. Yeah, it was rapier missile crack. It was just whoosh.
Yeah, I mean, we were right behind it in the paddock and saw it go. My first reaction was, maybe it's, gone through Norman's hands. But having watched it back now, it's so powerful. Norman doesn't have a chance to get it in.
The pace is ridiculous, yeah.
So it's a brilliant finish. It's exactly the sort of thing you wanted Dickinson to do at the other end, isn't it?
It's
frustrating, but nothing much you can do there. So yeah, brilliant finish from Cadden. I mean, from that point onwards, we never looked like scoring. That young chance was our only shot on target. And yeah, we didn't have another one after that. I think you could maybe count Dinzey's volley in the second half, but it was blocked so close to him that can you really count that as a shot on target? I'm not convinced, really.
No. There's a worrying habit in these sort of games when we're playing half decent teams. When we go 1 or 2 down, we suddenly look as though we could play to midnight and not score.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter what we've tried up front so far. It's just not happening, really, is it?
This is an ongoing problem with Beech, though, isn't it? That from pretty much from the point he's got the job, I think we've only picked up, I think it's something like 11 points from losing positions over the 2 years he's been in charge. I mean, what, 5 points a season, probably on average, roundabout. That's not a good record.
No,
it really isn't. That's worrying. If you can't, you've got to have an ability. I mean,
especially when you look at how many times we go behind.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I say is when we played under Keith Curl, for all his faults, you always had a feeling we could get ourselves back into games under him. You always had a feeling that we had the quality of players to drag us into it. I just don't see it at the moment. I'm really struggling. I mean, let's look back at the starting lineup he picked on, because it was quite a surprise when we saw it, wasn't it? We're all scratching heads like, what's going on here? I mean, clearly we found out afterwards that Gibson and McDonald are injured, so you can accept that they've been taken out of the team for that reason. They're not even on the bench. So you've got to bring in players to replace them. But to then drop Mellor to accommodate Riley at right back and push Whelan into midfield. Whelan's been playing at centre-back all season. Did he maybe feel that Whelan and Feeney just wouldn't work as a centre-back pairing, and he had to have someone like Dinzey with a bit of, brute sort of force about him, a big lad in there? I don't know. It just seemed a bit of an odd decision, didn't it? Especially dropping Mellor, who's experienced. I mean, you look at the defence that played. I mean, I know Riley's played it right back before, but he's been a centre midfielder for us for pretty much his whole time with us. Feeney's only playing, his 6th or 7th first-team appearance. Denze's making his debut, and Jack Armour's not exactly, experienced. He's maybe got 30 games under his belt now. You'd think you'd want someone like Mellor in there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it was... That was the first thing I thought was the complete lack of experience at the back, because Norman still hasn't played many games.
No.
Armour's only into his 2nd year. Riley was the most experienced, and he was playing a position he can play, but we all know he's more effective in midfield. So it was like I say, it was head scratching, and it'll still have been reasons, but it maybe showed that reacting to a win over a bunch of academy players isn't maybe the way to go.
No, definitely not. I think that whether that player had any influence on his decision to pick the team, I don't know. I mean, the first impression you get is it did, because players who did well in that game.
I think it did, but obviously injuries have also turned a hand as well.
I mean, another player who came in who played against Everton was Gimme Toure, and I've seen a few people getting on his back and that, but I mean, it can't be easy for someone like him to have been left out in the cold for weeks, and then suddenly get thrown in against Everton and then expected to start in the league game at the weekend as well. I know the professionals, people say you have to come in, but that must be tough for a player like him to suddenly have that put on him. But I mean, I thought, to be fair,
on the flip side, there's the argument though that you should be ready for your chance.
Yeah,
there's two sides to it.
But with him, it's sort of different in that there's clearly been a bit of unsettled things going on behind the scenes with him, isn't there? Really?
Cut to the chase, he's a babby.
Maybe not so much a babby. I think he basically wasn't getting chances. He was like, I want to leave, which you can understand. He's 27, 28 now, and he wants to be playing football. And then, if we're demanding fees from him, why we ever extended his contract, I don't know. That's puzzled me from the start.
At present, it does seem probably the most bizarre decision of the end of last season, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just looks like a weird one. What I would say from him is, though, actually, he got into some good areas, and he looked at a threat. Yeah, he wasted that big chance. He should have scored. Well, should have hit the target at the very least with that chance he had. But compared against some of the other players, like the way Alessandro's played at times this season, at least he was getting into good areas. He probably needs a run of games to get him up to speed. We can't afford to do that, and that's the problem we've got.
Yeah.
We just can't. We've got no option but to probably take him out of the team for the next game, to be honest. That's probably what'll happen. But there you go. I mean, Brad Young, he came in for his first league start for us. Did pretty well, I think. I thought he was
probably our best player.
Lively.
He was making good runs. He always wants it. He's always shouting for it. He's not shy at getting stuck in. I'd like to see him with someone not threading balls through to him through the middle. I think he'd be brilliant there, but that's not how we play at the moment, is it? So.
Yeah, well, you're thinking maybe a Clough just behind him.
Well, yeah.
There you go. I mean, I think he looks like he doesn't play with any fear, doesn't he? And
no.
I think he's so unlucky that header didn't go. And if that goes in, that gives him a real lift. I think he might start to see a really good player there.
He'll still be buzzing for. I know we try not to talk about the trophy, but the lads, he's scored 2 goals, so he will be buzzing personally. So
yeah.
And I certainly think he deserves a little run off the back of it.
Yeah, there was a bit of a bad reaction when he got subbed for Clough, but actually, to give Beech a bit of sort of leeway here, he'd given the ball away a couple of times just before that and was looking a bit tired. And I think that's probably the only reason he's come off, really, that his legs had maybe gone a little bit, which you can expect, with 2 games in a week at that age. So yeah. William in midfield didn't really work, did it?
No. Because he played for a few minutes. I'm sick of talking about this game because I don't like it, but because he played there for a bit against Everton's kids. That's not an excuse to make it happen. He was signed as a right back or right-sided defender.
I know Beech thinks
midfielder.
I know Beech says he thinks he'll play in that position eventually. I know that's what a few people have said, but at the moment he's played best at centre back. And if you wanted to make these changes in the game, why don't you stick Whelan at right back rather than Riley? That's what puzzled me a little bit, but there you go. Magnus Norman, better performance from him, I think it's fair to say. Still not quite so confident on him with set pieces, but he made a few good saves, didn't he?
He's just one of these modern keepers. They're all quite good at shot stopping, but it's almost as though they don't get coached the basics anymore, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll have more on him shortly anyway. So
yes, we will. Brendan Dickinson, I think he looked lively again. I think he's going to be our biggest attacking threat for much of this season. I think the way things are going, and I wouldn't be amazed actually to see him playing at left back a bit because Armour is struggling at left back right now, and Dickinson's played there quite a bit in his career, and he's an experienced head. What I would say is he's now on 4 yellow cards. He got a bit of a daft yellow card, didn't he, for booting their lad just before half time because he'd nicked the ball off him and he'd got away. So one more yellow card, he gets a 1-game ban, doesn't he?
yeah.
Abrahams is also on 3. He got one for a bit of a silly dissent as well. Discipline seems to be dropping off a bit this season. I think we're about average. We're about mid-table in the discipline table, but it feels to me like we're picking up quite a few silly yellow cards so far this season. It's getting a bit frustrating, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
you do wonder if that's a sign of a side that the manager's not really in control of right now.
It's probably not his priority, to be fair.
Yeah, well, it will be when he's playing and picking up bans all over the shop. But,
Yeah.
but there you go. Yeah, so yeah, like I mentioned there before, Dinzey did okay for his first 20 minutes or so. I mean, I think the goals knocked a bit of stuffing out of his confidence, but
Yeah.
actually he didn't do too bad, to be fair on him. I think I mean, he couldn't have picked a much tougher start, really, could he, in terms of coming up against a really good, widely experienced campaigner. Got to mention some of the post-match stuff. I think James actually gave Beech quite a tough interview after the game, and a lot of people are quite often critical of the interviews the club, the radio company do with the club. You've got to understand local media are always going to have to be a little bit more cautious than someone just coming in who doesn't go every week, aren't they, really? They're going to have to basically, not toe the line, but, they can't just go in and say you're rubbish, basically, because it's just that relationship then breaks down. But he was quite saying, look, a lot of the fans are calling for you to go. A lot of the fans saying the football's dreadful. And Beech kind of sort of understood that things aren't good enough in terms of the results. But at one point, he used the word excellent to describe something to do with the performance. I'm sorry, but you can't be using the word excellent to describe anything in that performance. You just can't.
No, not really.
It's really misleading. And I don't think he's quite grasping how bad the situation is right now. Do you?
No, he's... I don't want to say blinkered. I think maybe he is, but he's a very
positive person, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's got the thing of he still thinks it's very early days in the season, possibly.
But actually, we're nearly a quarter way through.
Yeah, we're 10 games in. After Saturday 11, it's pretty much a quarter. And, unfortunately, we've won 2 out of 10 and we're not even scoring a goal a game.
Yeah. It's just not good, is it? And I think Lummy made a really good comment, and I think I was on the fans foruming, and I said I completely agree with this, that one of the things he needs to do is just drag a few of them out. And what you do is, if you're a smart manager, you pick on your experienced players, basically, even if they're actually not playing as badly as some of the others. Those players are smart enough to know that he's doing this to make a point to the rest of them, especially if an experienced player's actually played okay, and the rest of them look thinking, bloody hell, if he's getting dragged out, I can't be doing very well, can I? So, I mean, the problem is we haven't got any experienced players in the team at the moment. So that's why we've got an issue. So, yeah, it's just it's one of those ones, isn't it? I suppose you should really look at it. Look, we're playing the team that's probably going to win the title this season. The score was only 2-0. It's an improvement on Sutton, but there's not a huge amount of positive signs that we're actually going to drag ourselves out of this problem, is there? It's just
depressing at the moment, isn't it?
It's just there's nothing really to get excited about. I mean, we're not even like totally shit like a Scunthorpe or an Oldham, because that can be vaguely exciting in a weird sort of sadomasochistic way. You can quite enjoy watching a rubbish team every now and then. We're just really dull, aren't we?
If I had to watch what was served up at Sutton every week, I think I'd go loopy.
Maybe not. But sometimes there's a bit of like a siege mentality about it. But at the moment, everyone just seems sort of resigned to accept him. We're going to be having a bit of a struggle this season, and the manager seems to believe we're not. That's the problem.
We're nailed on for 18th sort of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't look great, does it? So there's not really a huge amount to cover in that game, is there, Dan? I don't think there's anything else you want to cover in it. No. Best just to leave it there. I think it's fair to say. All right then, guys. We'll be back in just a minute after the halftime break to preview the Bristol Rovers game. So we're back in just a minute.
every different manager has got different ways of doing, and obviously the ones that I like the best are the ones who never use the playing surface, the stadium pitch, never ever use it as a training facility. That's what I like best. I've had words with Roddy about the use of the pitch. I don't know whether he takes any notice of us. I get on all right with all the players, but I always call goalkeepers idiots. Which I say I hate keepers. Whenever I see keepers, I hate keepers. You know, they are trash. The dregs of the world, keepers, like, because they scratch the turf off to make marks in the middle, and to warm up, they come out an hour before the game kicks off. I mean, do you need to warm up for an hour? I just can't help getting worked up about it, Mike.
I don't know what it is about that clip. I just love it. Ted Swain going off on about goalkeepers and stuff like that. I'll have to get a few more clips from the Rod Squad clip to put in there. So yeah, we're into the second half of the show, and this season, the second half of the show is being sponsored by the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East, and in Cumbria as well. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events and sports games, and also doing fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. And Simon from the London branch has sent over a bit of details for this weekend's game against Bristol Rovers. He says, for Bristol Rovers, the London branch have got group travel on the 10:31 train out of Paddington into Bristol Temple Meads. He says there are no trains running to Bristol Parkway on Saturday, although, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have advised going to Parkway anyway, because it's a bit of a trek to get there to Bristol Rovers ground anyway, to be honest. So they're going into Temple Meads, and their pre-match meeting pub is the Annex Inn on Neville Road. What I would say to anyone going the game, make sure you get early on the train, because having spent a lot of time in Bristol in the past, it's quite a trek from the station up to the Memorial Stadium. So there you go. So yeah, at the start of this section, we, as usual, are going to speak to an opposition podcast. And this week, we spoke to Tom from the GasCast to discuss how both clubs have had a dreadful start of the season and whether this match is do or die for our respective head coaches. So here's the chat we had with Tom this week. Tom, it's been 5 years since you guys were in League Two, and your return this season, it's not really been plain sailing for Rovers, has it? I think it's fair to say.
No, absolutely not. No, it's been pretty much a disaster. We're down in 20th, just below you guys.
Propping us up.
Yeah. It's not been the return to League Two that Joey BartonA promised us so far. That's for certain.
I mean, what were your expectations coming into the season? Because I know that, I think bookies had you as one of sort of the favourites, didn't they? And for us on our show, it was a mixed bag in terms of what we predicted, because one of us actually predicted you to finish in the top three. I don't think I predicted to finish anywhere in any sort of thing. I think I had mid-table. And one of the other hosts actually predicted you to be a surprise struggler. So, yeah, I think fans of other clubs have always been, but Joey BartonA, I'm not sure. We'll touch on him in a minute. But what were your expectations for this season?
So, expectations-wise, I mean, you look at the signings that we brought in. Anderton, obviously, you guys know about. Yeah. Hughes from Accrington. You're looking at players like Sam Finley and Paul Coots. Brett Pittman from Swindon. You're looking at those players and you're thinking, yeah, they're all at least League Two quality, probably League One quality players. And you're thinking, right, squad's pretty decent. I mean, we thought that last season when we got relegated rock bottom of League One, but so we're a little bit more reserved with our judgment until Joey BartonA basically, from when he took over last season, had basically said, as soon as it was confirmed we were relegated, he's like, right, next season we're getting promoted, and I'm building a squad to get promoted. And all the player interviews, especially when they came in, they said, can't wait to join Bristol Rovers, can't wait to get promoted. So he made a rod for his own back, certainly, and I know we're going to go into him in a bit, so I won't say too much more, but essentially a lot of gas heads were thinking, we are going for promotion, there's no two ways about it, that's what the budget's for, that's what the players have been recruited for, and the manager's been stuck with for. It's obviously not turned out that way. So I think a lot of fans either came into the season with the expectation we were going to get promoted, or me personally, I thought it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that at all. You don't buy all the best players and then suddenly you're going to be top of the league. It's not that easy. So I was kind of thinking, do you know what? We are going to struggle, especially at the start of the season, with all the new players and gelling. So I was kind of like, right, I think we're probably going to miss out on the playoffs. That was a roundabout where I had us. And, so far we are, easily going to miss out on the playoffs. So
yeah, quite comfortably, really, like us at the moment. In terms of that summer recruitment, I was looking through the squad before, and it's packed with experience and players who played at a much higher level. Is there a bit of concern, though, that there's a bit too much of the experienced sort of player in the squad? There's a bit too much reliance on these older heads and not really the young talent coming through in the same way. I'm not sure where your squad lies in terms of average age compared against the rest of League Two, but it does seem like it's one of those ones that it's a lot of players who are sort of coming for their last paycheck almost. I know we've made that mistake a few times in the past.
Oh, yeah, I think you're completely right. I mean, we signed Glenn Whelan on deadline day, remember him? Mm-hmm. He's still ancient. Leon Clark, 36, got injured almost immediately. The experience thing kind of it follows on from last season where Ben Garner was given the reins in the summer. He's now at Swindon and he beat us on Saturday playing excellent football with Swindon. I can't fault his managerial now so far by looking at what they've been doing. But essentially he was given the reins over the last summer to say, right, rebuild Bristol Rovers with this new DNA, young players, hungry players who we can sell on and, get the best out of them and then sell them on, kind of like, Brentford and Crewe do especially. So Barton's come in, said that they're not good enough, shipped the vast majority of them out and has replaced them with, like you said, experienced heads, and they look like they are old. I mean, a lot of these players are very old, and they look really heavy in the legs. We've got a couple of players who are a bit younger, a bit more pace, Anderson and Evans especially, but on the whole, we do look very, very slow. And what I think is most disappointing with, you buy experience because you're almost guaranteed performances, but players especially like Mark Hughes at the back has been very, very disappointing. He's dropped at the moment. I can't see him getting his way back into the team at the moment. So we've gone from kind of one extreme to the other, and neither of them has worked. It's always, like you said, you need that blend to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it of a club trying to, like as you said last summer, sign these younger players and build up a squad and that kind of thing, and sell them on and reinvest the profits is exactly what we're trying to do. Problem is, we're doing it to the extreme. Basically, that's the issue we've got. I just had a quick check there of your squad. You've got 9 players of age 30 or over. We've got 2, and one of them is only just 30 as well, and the other one's 32. And it is quite extraordinary how many experienced players you actually have got in your squad. Looking at that. Let's talk about the manager now then. Joey BartonA. He's a man who divides opinions, shall we say. Certainly not one to go about his job quietly. I think actually people sort of look back and he actually did an okay job at Fleetwood when you look at the job he did there. It wasn't, the bad manager I think everyone expected he probably would be. But he's really struggled with you guys. And I've noticed that he's been blaming Ben Garner a lot actually for the issues you're still having now. What's the fans' opinions on him so far? Is he sort of teetering on the edge of potentially losing his job?
So, no, is the short answer. While Arcadi, the owner, has come out and publicly backed him and said he's not going anywhere. I think that was last night or the night before he came out and said that on an ITV interview. So I don't think he is teetering on the edge. But saying that, I think fans are losing patience with him. I mean, he took over a bit of a poison chalice last season. We weren't really good enough with the squad we had, and he didn't improve us that much. He did improve us a little bit, but the constant sniping at ex-managers and kind of playing down the group saying they're not good enough, they've got a losing mentality, all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, you're trying to get these players to perform out of their skins and get themselves out of trouble, and you're turning around and saying, oh yeah, no, they're rubbish, they haven't had a pre-season, they're not fit enough, they're this, they're that. Which, fine if that's your belief. But then he went on to say, wait till I get my players. They'll have a proper pre-season. They're going to be superhuman. And that hasn't materialised, essentially. And I think that's where Rovers fans have started to lose patience, because as much as, he comes with a lot of baggage, you can kind of accept it if he gets results. And he's not got the results. And I think the constant blaming of old managers, he made some incendiary comments about Bengana just before we played them on Saturday. I'm thinking, you're just writing his team talk for him. And also then to go and play against his team and get 3-1 was flattering for us, I have to say. And to get absolutely played off the park by Bengana's Swindon, it was just, as much as you never want to see your team lose, I was kind of like, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, if he gets one over on you here, you deserve it, because you've been running your mouth. So I think fans are running out of patience with him. The owner isn't. And I think that's the kind of end of that story. But the fans are really, really losing patience. He was already a divisive figure, and the voices that were supporting him are getting quieter and quieter as the weeks go on.
It's interesting you mentioned that Swindon game, because a former player of ours, Harry McCurdy, by all accounts, had an absolute blinder for them, which is very typical of Harry. He could turn it on when he wants to, but when he wants to is not very often.
Did he have the ponytail when he was with you?
He did have a ponytail. He had the sort of long bleach hair, but I'm guessing he's still got ridiculously short shorts as well that he wears.
Yeah, and almost no shin pads as well.
Yes, he's a character. I think that's one way some people would describe him. I think some Carlisle fans have got another word with a C that they'd use to describe him, but there you go. So it sounds like sort of Barton's one of these ones that the board have got a bit of faith in, but the fans are really losing it. In terms of the club itself, how difficult is it? Because for a Carlisle fan, it's really weird. We are a two-city club in the sense that there is another club in Carlisle City, but they play at the lowest rung of non-league football and have only been there for a few years. So there's no real rivalry or any sort of... There's almost like a patronising sort of, we hope they do well sort of look to it. You're in a two-club city, and it's a big city, and it's big enough to hold two clubs. But what's it like as a fan to see sort of, I suppose, Bristol City always generally doing better than you guys? And on top of that, what's going on in terms of the stadium redevelopment for you guys? Because that was talked about a few years ago, because I know the Memorial Stadium's kind of similar to Brunton Park in a sense that it's a big ground and it's an impressive ground for the Football League, but it's old and it needs upgrading, doesn't it?
Upgrading, our ground needs demolishing. It's 90% tents anyway, so it'll take an afternoon. It's absolutely no bother. And it is one of those that really holds us back. And it's one of the things, it holds us back within, obviously, all the conferencing, all the boring stuff that fans don't really care about. But it also holds us back from attracting parents who want to take their kids to football, and they look at the Memorial Stadium and they're like, it's a bit grotty. And they look at Ashton Gate, and as much as, the place is absolute hell to me, it's actually quite nice for families, and they do amazing deals for season tickets and for kids and all that. And it's just, we're light years apart, and it's frustrating as, the kind of junior partner in that one, kind of like Stoke and Port Vale kind of thing, because that's pretty much the levels we're away from each other. And it hasn't always been that way. We were the best team in Bristol for a while, and then they got taken over by Lansdowne, Steve Lansdowne, the billionaire, I think he is actually. And they just went on, they've invested in all the right places, in the stadium, in the training grounds and all that kind of stuff. Well, we've stood still / gone backwards. And it hurts, but I try not to think about them.
Sorry for bringing it up.
Yeah. It's very upsetting, and I think it all comes down to really the investment in the stadium. I mean, Ashton Gate, I got my vaccination there. They opened up the stadium, had all the COVID jabs there, and they can do they host the rugby now again as well, which used to be at the Mem. And, they do gigs. I watched Muse at Ashton Gate, and as much as I wanted to be there and be like, I really like the music, but I really hate the place, the facilities were pretty good. I'm going to whisper it, they were pretty good. So that's the kind of bit that we're missing out on. And, been looking to move or rebuild the men for years and years. And the latest scheme was to buy some land where the fruit market is in St. Philip's. And that was kind of like the preferred site, and it looked like it was kind of progressing, and then COVID hit and it's gone absolutely dead. So no idea when we're going to get a new if we're going to get a new stadium. We're stuck basically where we are for the foreseeable, and it's not a good place to be stuck, essentially.
Yeah, to be honest, we feel your pain in that sense, because we've had that issue with Brunton Park, obviously with the floods and stuff, and you see one modern news stand, but there's no conference facilities or anything like that inside it, and the main stand where you can see what that looks like, it's a 1950s main stand. And we've got the problem is we discussed, we looked into moving the ground about 10 years ago, and that fell through, and ever since it's just been put off basically by the owners consistently. So it's a frustration for us as much as it is for you guys. Quickly before we get on to predictions this weekend, Nick Anderton obviously joined you guys in the summer from us. How's he gotten so far?
I was really excited by Nick Anderton, actually. He came with rave reviews, obviously had been captain, and it's like, right, that's exactly what we need at the back. A lot of people don't like him, think he's a bit of a bomb scare. I know he's kept out of your team by a youngster, which isn't always a good sign. I think he's okay. He plays on the left side of centre-back for us. He's recently been dropped. He hasn't played the last couple of games. But before that, he pretty much started every game.
Is that a back three or a back four?
Of a back three, yeah.
Back three,
left centre-back of a back three, yeah. So he's looked... I mean, he's not amazingly quick. He's, for a tall lad, he's okay in the air. Just nothing spectacular about it. I don't look at him and think, oh yeah, that's a really, really good centre back. He just looks okay to not okay.
That sounds about right, to be honest. I mean, for us, he mostly played left back for us. He was solid enough. Armour got into the team ahead of him, and they sort of swapped for a little while. Then Armour basically pinned down the position of his own. Although, funny enough, Armour's not had a great season for us so far, so that lack of competition really isn't helping him, because we haven't actually signed a left back to replace.
Oh, do you fancy a swap?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I wouldn't be against him going back if he pushed Armour on again. But yeah, for us, he played centre-back towards the end of the season as an emergency in one game and did okay. And then he played in a back four as a centre-back in another game, and he got torn apart, and he had an absolute nightmare. And after that, it's like, right, you can go back to left-back now. Don't worry about it anymore. So to hear that he's playing there again is a little bit of a surprise. But I don't think any Carlo fans particularly hate him or anything. If he was just a solid performer, like you said, someone who at this level you can sort of rely on to be 6, 7 out of 10 most games, I think. Okay, then let's do predictions for this weekend, mate. It was appreciate you giving you time. So what do you think the score's going to be?
So I reckon we'll score, and I reckon we'll concede. It's definitely going to be a score game. I think I'm going to sneak a Rovers 2-1 win, and the only reason I'm doing that is just home advantage. It's a long kind of trip for the players, and the men, when it's in good voice as well, is a fantastic place to get behind the players, and I think that will hopefully just be enough. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw, to be honest.
Nick Anderton will be on the score sheet anyway. I guarantee you that. Thanks for your time, Tom. Really appreciate it. And all the best for the rest of the season after this weekend.
Yeah, same for you guys.
Okay, thanks once again to Tom for giving up his time to speak to us about all things Bristol Rovers. Now let's get on to the game, Dan. Referee this weekend is Charles Breakspear. I mean... This is
a fantastic name, isn't it?
It's a great name. It's his 9th season as an EFL referee, and I refuse to believe he's been an EFL referee for 9 seasons, because with a name like that, I'd like to think I'd have heard of him by now. Yeah. But it turns out I've never heard of him until now. It's a weird one. So yeah, it's his 9th season as the EFL referee. This season so far, he's taken charge of 11 games, handing out 44 yellow cards and 2 red cards. About 4 yellow cards a game.
Yeah.
Quite a few. He last took charge of a United game in February 2020. It was the 2-1 victory over Cambridge United. The Blues had 5 players booked that day, which were Aaron Hayden, Byron Webster, Harry McCurdy, Taylor Charters, and Olafelo Olamola. One booking away from a £1,000 fine there. Yes, so in terms of head-to-head record, we've played them 36 times in our history. 13 of those have been Carlisle United wins, 9 have been draws, and 14 have been Bristol Rovers wins. So quite a tight one, actually. It's one of those ones, isn't it, that the southern clubs we don't tend to have played as much as the northern clubs, have we? Because of the old Division 3 North and South crack and all that stuff, isn't it? In terms of classic clash, I had a look back through and I was trying to pick out a few here. I'm a bit disappointed, Dan. I've just realised now I could have picked a really good one for you. I could have picked the one where Ian Stevens scored his hat-trick for us in 97-98. So I've made a mistake there. Maybe we'll do that for the reverse fixture. So you can have a little walk down memory lane for that one. So what I've done actually is I've gone back to the last time we played Bristol Rovers, which was 5 years ago. I didn't realise they'd been in League One for that long. Yeah. It was March 2016, and United ran out 3-2 winners at Brunton Park against Rovers. They took the lead in the 11th minute of this game. I don't know if you've watched the highlights back yet of this, Dan, but the opening goal was from Jack Stacey. He cut inside from the left and he curled a stunning shot.
Yeah, it was a really good goal, wasn't it, from memory?
Yeah, from 25 yards past the despairing dive of the Rovers keeper. It's a weird one, Jack Stacey, isn't he? Because he came towards us as a left winger and he seemed to be left-footed. But he looked quite good on his right foot. And now he's playing in the Championship for Bournemouth as a right-back, isn't he?
Yeah.
Very, very odd one, that one, but there you go. Obviously broke our heart to Exeter as well, didn't he? The visitors responded quite well, and it was Billy Bowden who drew them level. He pounced on a poor backheader by Michael Rains to put the ball past Gillespie in goal. Gillespie was actually almost left with red face not long after this because there was a ball played back to him by Danny Granger. And he takes a touch. It's played back quite hard. He takes it, he sort of misjudges it, stretches to take the touch, and it goes like right across the goal line and just goes wide of the post. Would have been very, very embarrassing if it had gone in. One of the ones for Danny Baker's own goals and gaffes from back in the day. That's one for the teenagers there. Into the second half, United took the lead again when a long ball forward was flicked on by Rains, and White showed great movement to nip in, get a touch, and then slide it past the Rovers keeper. That lead didn't last too long. Matty Taylor, not sure which one of the Matty Taylors, because there's quite a few of them out there, isn't there? I think it's the one that's playing for Oxford now. He turned on the edge of the box and hit a low shot that bobbled up and bobbled over the dive of Gillespie. You could probably argue it was a mistake by Gillespie, really, this one. But the winner actually came in the 85th minute as Tom Miller played an inch-perfect through ball to Jason Kennedy on a great run, and he chipped it over the keeper into the net to score all 3 points. But that's not the main talking point from this game, is it, Dan?
No, we have a one-game wonder.
We do indeed. The PlayStation footballer himself, the man with all the stepovers, Louis Pedro. I mean, there was a signing, wasn't there? Dear God.
Where did he come from? Where did he go? You know?
He played at a decent level in Holland, didn't he, I think? He actually had a decent record at a couple of clubs. But he just sort of came in and he just didn't seem to know what to do when he was playing for us. He was a very odd one, that was.
The reckon in training, he was superb.
Yeah, maybe Cole just didn't know how to fit him.
He's actually playing at the moment for FC Nitra.
Wow.
Which is the Slovakian... Is that Slovak? I think it's the Slovakian.
Some sort of lower level team, I'm guessing. But there you go. Yeah. Okay, well, that's the classic match.
Yeah, Slovakian. Sorry, I was just waiting for Google to load.
It's all right.
Yes. So,
right, that's the classic match done. Like I said, for the reverse fixture, we'll do one just for you, Dan, with an Ian Stevens hat-trick, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll enjoy that one. Played for both, Dan. So it's time for you to do your little bit and tell us about a player who featured for both clubs.
Yeah, let me just load my page up. And I am going for someone who was born in 1954.
Oh, right,
Actually born in Liverpool, and he was a striker. But he only joined Bristol Rovers. That can't be right. Right, anyways, I'm on about Archie Stevens.
Archie Stevens.
Which is a name that'll bring a shudder to one or two folk who witnessed Archie play. But he started in non-league at one or two clubs around Melksham Town, and then he went to Bristol Rovers. And he did well at Bristol Rovers. Scored over 40 goals in 120 odd appearances. Got himself a move up to Middlesbrough. Again, he did all right there. 24, 25 goals in about 90, 100 appearances. Then he came to Carlisle. Yeah.
Didn't quite work there, did it? For
No, he did get a couple of goals, but he just... don't get me wrong, we were atrocious at this period.
I mean, he was 33 by the time he signed for us, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think so.
We were atrocious in this period, but it's the name just brings shudders to fans of a certain vintage. And after he left us, I think he went to Yeovil briefly. He popped up at Darlington and Gisborough. He did. He must have settled over the North East because he did become manager at Northallerton Town in 97, 98. But they got relegated and he left, and he literally disappears.
It's strange, wasn't he? Because I'm looking at his career again here, Dan, and like I said, he's born in Liverpool, but he's played basically for clubs down in the southwest, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And then suddenly just ends up at Middlesbrough, and obviously then.
I mean, it could be that his family were in Merseyside for work
possibly,
or something, or
possibly could be that. But yeah, wasn't there an interesting discussion on the old message board at some point about him scoring a goal which he didn't score or something like that?
Yes, there was. There was a disputed goal. I'd have to attempt to Google it and find it, but it just didn't really work for us there.
No, certainly not. But, right, let's go through the full list, and it's not quite as long as some of the others, but it's a bit longer than I expected it to be, actually, because you don't expect there to be too many links between.
I think it's fair to say one or two of them haven't played many games for us.
Or for Bristol Rovers, even.
Yeah, true.
There you go. So first up, I mean, he's playing for them now. He was playing for us last season. Nick Anderton. He's obviously played for both clubs. Joanna Yinsa, a player who looked like he had so much potential when he was playing for us as a striker, didn't he? I think that Greg converted him from a winger to a striker, and he looked so good. And then moved to Charlton and never worked out for him after that, did he? He just disappeared, pretty much. Someone who didn't actually play for both clubs, but he managed both clubs, Ian Atkins, had a spell in charge of Bristol Rovers. Don't think he did particularly well there, did he? With us, obviously, he's well remembered for keeping us in the league under very difficult circumstances. Someone who we keep mentioning in the old X-Files updates, don't we, Dan?
Yeah, he found his sort of level at the National League, hasn't he?
Angelo Ballante. Yeah, he looked an all right player for us. He looked like he looked a very good technical footballer, didn't he? But I just don't think Curl ever had an idea of how to actually use him in the team, did he?
And unsurprisingly, still the only Colombian to have played for us.
Yeah, indeed. A player who probably brings back a lot better memories for United than some of the other players we're going to mention here. Paul Bannon. Yeah, early 80s, wasn't he? I think part of the team that won promotion to the what is now the Championship, obviously. Very popular player, wasn't he? I think at United, and he sadly passed away, didn't he? About 5 years ago, I think, back in Dublin.
Yes, he did. Yeah. I think he was only about 60-odd-year-old when he.
Yeah, not particularly old.
Passed.
No. Again, one of these players who's not played many games was John Bass. Anyone who can remember back far enough, on loan from Birmingham City, was it, in the mid-90s? I think it was around about the time that Wadsworth left. I think he came on loan, didn't he?
Yeah.
On a month's loan. Jack Bonham did very well for us on loan, did very well for Bristol Rovers on loan. He's got his move to Stoke City now, hasn't he? And I don't think he's actually played a first-team game for me, or not in the league at least, anyway. I think he's still waiting to make his league debut for Stoke City. A player we mentioned a few weeks ago, Darren Carr. He started out at Bristol Rovers, actually. I think he's from down that way. Someone else we mentioned quite recently as well, Tim Carter. Some people might remember. I think he was a goalkeeper, wasn't he? I think he was at Man United at one point in his career, possibly. He was on loan. I think he might have been the early days when you were watching football, Dan, possibly, at United. I think he... sorry, he wasn't at Man United. I got mixed up with someone else completely there. He started out at Bristol Rovers, and he spent time at Sunderland. And he was on loan for us for 4 games in the late 80s. It's quite a sad story, his one, though, because he actually he took his own life, unfortunately. I think the inquest basically found that he basically struggled to deal with his son's disabilities, apparently. So quite a sad one. He was only 40 when he died. Next up, someone who played for Bristol Rovers but managed us. Your favourite, Dan, Keith Curl.
Managed is... don't know if that's the right word.
Yes, there you go. Darryl Duffy, another one we mentioned sporadically, don't we? In the
still playing for Stranraer, is it? I think
he's still
it is,
knocking a few in, isn't he? Yeah, he's doing all right there. Yeah. Somebody who was at Bristol Rovers last season left in the summer. Max Amer. I think he was a good little loan player we had when he was on loan.
Yeah, he was solid enough. He's done well in League One, hasn't he? So
is he the only German to have played for us?
Yeah, we had Tobias Zellner on trial, but he didn't actually.
No, he never played.
There was some sort of there's confusion with Zellner that he signed for us.
Yeah,
but I think he was just on an extended trial.
Yeah. I don't think he ever signed an actual deal.
No, because he did appear at Preston before us and didn't really play for them.
No. Kevin Gall, I think he sort of started his professional career effectively, didn't he? There, I think he was at Newcastle, wasn't he? But he never really played for them. He was at Bristol Rovers. He actually played up front in the game that was 20 years ago today when we played against Bristol Rovers on the same day as David Beckham scoring that free kick at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
A weird one. That was back in the day when clubs didn't really move games, did they? Or England games were always at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, which was, you look back now, it just never made sense really, did it? It was just stupid, but there you go. Yeah. Matty Glennon, he's a one-game wonder for Bristol Rovers. He played one game for them on loan, and then I think his next loan from Bolton was actually with us. So, yeah. Mike Green, he started his career with us. He's a local lad, a Carlisle lad. He played 2 games in the early 60s and then left the club, went to Gillingham, and then I think he went to Bristol Rovers, and he played quite a few games, like 150 odd games, I think, for them. So, done very well there. Jimmy Hamilton, I think he played for us in the early 80s, possibly. Carl Heggs, who you did for the played for both the other day, didn't you?
Yeah.
Reggie Lamb, I never realised he was at Bristol Rovers. The very start of his career, he had a loan spell there from Ipswich Town. Bob Lee, he had spells at both clubs. Lee Madison, I think he's a Bristol lad, isn't he? He started his career there.
He's from down that way, isn't he?
Yeah. Scored one of the best goals I've seen in Brunton Park. I mean, it's on YouTube somewhere, isn't it? It's an unbelievable hit, like an arrow into the top corner. What a goal that was. Who else? Aidan McCaffrey. He was at Bristol Rovers. You probably have. Well, I wasn't following United at that time, so you'll have memories of him being manager of the club, which again, a stretch to say he was manager, wasn't it?
Strong accusation that, yeah.
Yeah, indeed it is.
He was a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, don't get us wrong, he wasn't very good, but
yeah,
the club was just. I know, I say it repeatedly, but folk think we're in a mess now. Good grief, you wanted to be around then, believe me.
Yeah. Another one-game wonder for you here, Dan. Jeffrey Monacana, who's currently playing with, I think, a second division Icelandic side. I think it's the second club he's played for in Iceland. I do wonder how these Iceland clubs actually afford to have players like them. I'm guessing the wages aren't massive, but there must be something to attract some of these English players.
I would imagine they get free digs and food and whatnot as well, so the wages are actually theirs.
Yeah. Tom Parks, he actually played in the classic match we mentioned just before. Gavin Riley, now at Greenock Morton, isn't he? I think on loan. Yeah. John Rudge, we mentioned him the other week. He had a spell at Bristol Rovers. Dave Rushbury, I think he was early 80s, wasn't he? I think he was part of that team that went up to the second division / championship back in the day. Archie Stevens, you mentioned already, Dan. Gareth Taylor, who's now a manager of Man City women's side. And finally, someone who managed both clubs, John Ward. I think he had I don't know so much success in terms of winning things, but I think he did quite a good job at Bristol Rovers, sort of stabilising them in the mid-90s. He might have even been manager in charge in that game when Ian Stevens scored that hat-trick. I'll have to have a check of that when I do it next time. There you go. Well, let's get on to Bristol Rovers themselves now then, Dan. I went back and checked on this. So while Mike was
just start doffing his cap and polishing my badges.
Yeah, indeed. So I looked back at the prediction just to see if we'd mentioned Bristol Rovers in them. Now I didn't mention them at all, but I think I genuinely agreed with you that I was for. Basically, Dan picked them as the surprise struggler for this season. Now I sort of said I tend to agree with that. I'm not sure they'll do that well, partly because of the issues involving the manager, which we'll get onto in a minute. But another one of our presenters, who will remain anonymous, but you can probably quite easily work out, is predicted them to finish in the top 3. So that's not looking a great prediction so far. In fact, I think he had Salford City as one of the other teams in the top three.
I think we all do, don't we?
Yeah, we all have them in it.
Yeah, just in case they do click.
I mean, I'll keep saying it, but I've got Forest Green to finish top. So there you go. But I mean, I don't think we expected them to be quite this bad so far, did we? We thought it would be like a slow, gradual thing, really, didn't we?
No, I didn't. I all joking apart, I honestly just thought they're going to struggle. I just looked at it, the turnover of players, the manager, bits and bobs. Reading about the first couple of friendlies where they sounded atrocious, I just thought these are set to struggle big time.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned there, they had quite a big clear out in the summer. I mean, they spent the previous 5 seasons in League One.
Oh, imagine that.
God, yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, we had, 7 seasons at that level? Oh, in fact, the glory
halcyon days.
The glory days indeed, eh? Think of those people who complained about Greg Abbott back in the day, and now look at it.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for. It's obviously the Pirates have returned to this level. They just seem to have stagnated. They had a few years of growth in them because they went down to the conference. They got themselves up to League One again. They were kind of like us in a weird way, but they've got a similar issue to us, haven't they? In that they're stuck with a stadium in the Memorial Stadium, which it's quite old and dilapidated, isn't it? And they've got like still temporary stands behind one of the goals. And
I wouldn't say it's as old as ours. I would just say it's facility-wise, it's a bit more inadequate.
It's basic, isn't it?
Yeah, the 2 main stands are decent little sports ground stands.
Yeah.
But they're not Football League stands, are they?
No, they don't generate money because it used to be the rugby ground, didn't it? I think
yeah.
Going back quite a bit. And I think that they've been looking, haven't they? Is it working with the university, one of the universities down there, I think, to build like a proper sports campus and redevelop the whole stadium or even move to a new ground possibly. And none of that seems to have come off, and it just seems to be one struggle after another in terms of all that stuff for them. Let's get on to the manager then, Mr. Joey Barton.
Well, we'll get on to him, but there's probably not a lot we can say about him for legal reasons.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a man who goes about his job quietly, is he? It's fair to say. I mean, controversy is always quick to follow him. And as you mentioned there are a couple of court cases still hanging over him. We're not going to discuss them for the obvious reasons, and we'll leave that as it is. You can go and Google that if you really want to find out more. He actually did I think people don't appreciate he did quite a solid job at Fleetwood, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because they weren't splashing in money in the same way they had when they first went up to League One. I think he was having to work a lot more with younger players coming through, and they did okay. There was still,
I think with Fleetwood as well, folk need to step back and just look at how small a club they really are.
Yeah.
Even
allowing
Fleetwood being an established League One team is an achievement in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably bigger than Accrington and Morecambe being up there.
Yeah,
because I mean Morecambe have not got as many clubs around them really. That's the thing.
How depressing is this talking about these sort of clubs?
Fleetwood, Accrington, Morecambe, Peterhead. I'm not trying to make this cheery.
Even teams like Burton Albion, they're not big teams.
No, but they've basically had some people who've pumped a bit of fun into them, and Burton have got a nice little ground that suits them perfectly, and that generates money when they don't have matches on and things like that, which helps them massively. We just don't have that. That's the sooner our fans click on and realise that and push the board to actually do something about that. That's if this board's not going to sell anytime soon, that's the thing they need to sort out as soon as possible. But get on to another topic there. We could do a whole podcast about things the club really needs to do, but there you go.
Christ, that'd be about a 48-parter.
Yeah, indeed. He left Fleetwood midfield last season. I think he looked at the Bristol Rovers job and thought, there's a sort of almost sleeping giant, a club that I can really get up the leagues, potentially get to the championship. I think that's what he was almost looking at. But they were a bit of a desperate situation when he came in. I think Paul Tisdale had been in charge, hadn't he? And he'd struggled to turn things around from the problems he'd had even before he came in. And it's weird because he struggled to he didn't keep them up last season, Barton, and he seems to be spending most of his time blaming one of the previous managers, Ben Garner, and just basically saying he signed a load of rubbish and he didn't train them well. What they did was an absolute farce when he was in charge. It's an embarrassment that he was, he should be embarrassed with what happened here. Well, I hate to say it to you, Joey, but Ben Garner's now in charge of Swindon Town, everyone's been predicting them to go down. And look at them; they beat them at the weekend, and they're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it doesn't look great on that, does it? If the man who he said is useless, basically, has come and turned his side over with what's essentially a scratch squad that's been put together before the season started. It's not great, is it? And I think he wasn't helped at the start of the season either, was he, Barton, when Clinton Hill left his role as assistant manager?
Yeah.
He's at Hartlepool now, isn't he? I think he's helping out Dave Shellander there, I think, while they look for a new assistant manager for Hartlepool. I think that suggests to me that the travelling was the issue in terms of why Hill's given up that role, I think.
There's one or two Carlisle fans who would maybe like to see Mr. Hill somewhere.
Oh, as manager. Well, you never know. By all accounts, he did a mock interview when he was up here. When I think whichever job came off, and when it would have been when Curl left, they basically said, "Well, do a mock interview." And they said they were blown away at how good he was in the interview. And said
that they didn't think to sit down and have a proper conversation with him.
I think, to be honest, they thought we need to get someone experienced in to deal with things next season. Yeah. I think in any other situation, I think further down the line they might have looked at him possibly, but there you go. So yeah, he's obviously left that role there. So I've gone through the squad, and I was looking through this, Dan, and picking out a Starman. There's a lot of decent players in there, but you look at them and you think
it's experienced, isn't it?
It's experienced, but I look at them and think there's a lot of players coming towards the end of the quiz. A lot of players who are experienced and played a lot, but have not done that great in the last couple of seasons. That would be my worry. And the man I've picked in the end is Leon Clark. I mean, he is a player that blows hot and cold, isn't he? I think it's fair to say. He's had some pretty awful spells in his career. I mean, his last spell was at Shrewsbury Town last season. He scored 1 goal in 10 appearances. Yeah. But then when you go back and look at his spells at both Sheffield clubs and Coventry City, he's prolific for them. I think Coventry, he scored something like, was it 23 goals in 26 games or something stupid like that? Mind
you, he hasn't played much for them this year, has he?
I think he's only just signed a few weeks ago. I think he signed quite late, like after the transfer deadline.
His first game he's listed as being sort of at the club was for the 31st of August.
Yeah. I think he arrived late and he had to build his fitness up, basically. That's why they didn't use him. But he's got 1 goal in his first 2 games, doesn't he? So he's already off the mark for them, which is probably a good sign for them. But I mean, if he can get him performing, Barton, he'd be a handful for any defence in this division. I remember him playing for Chesterfield against us and he tore us apart one day, I remember. He's a really good player at this level, potentially. Not the youngest player now, but, I picked him out as my star man. I don't know if there's anyone else there you thought Dan would be.
I think the one that would sort of appeals to Carlisle fans a bit, which is probably Harvey Saunders. He was probably a player that folk would have liked to have seen maybe come to Carlisle.
Yeah.
Given his Darlington, Hartlepool, Fleetwood,
Yeah, but he obviously chose. I mean, I imagine Bristol Rovers offered more money.
Probably offered him 2 or 3 years as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's another one I picked out there. But I mean, like you said, so much experience there. I mean, Glenn Whelan. I mean, there's a player who's, played for God knows how many years in the Premier League. But, again, like you said, he's getting on. He's not the youngest now. Yeah. Mark Hughes is a player who's been a great defender for Accrington at League 1 level, even in League 2. Paul Coots, another player who's, he's played for Sheffield United, and I think he played for Scotland as well, actually. I think he's Scotland International.
I'm just looking at Alfie Kilgour, who normally plays at the back for them. He got sent off against Swindon, so
he won't feature.
He'll be missing, won't he?
Yeah, I mean, Harry Anderson was a big part of Lincoln's side that won promotion from the National League and then up to League 1 as well through League 2, winning the title in League 2. I mean, Brett Pittman. There's a player, you'd back to score goals.
I think is he not the one who Mike suggested might score a ridiculous amount of goals?
Yeah, and he scored 1 now for 7 games. Mike's predictions aren't looking great this season, to be fair.
No.
I think actually the relegation ones he's actually looking too bad. I think he went for Scunthorpe and Oldham possibly, so he might be on for that one. But yeah, I mean, like you said, there's bags of experience, but like I said, when you look at that, you think to yourself, are these players just picking up a last payday? It kind of reminds me of us at times, where we've signed a lot of experienced players, and you just thought to yourself, actually, you'd rather have maybe some exciting young players in there as well.
Yeah.
They must be one of the oldest average age squads in the division, surely.
Oh, yeah. When
you look at it, I mean, on top of that, you've got actually Alex Rodman. I didn't even notice he's 34 playing for them as well. And so it'll be interesting to see how they get on over the rest of the season. But for me, it's a big squad as well. That's the other thing that stands out.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
A lot of them. So there you go. As you mentioned there, they had a huge clear out over the summer. I mean, when you look at the players that let go, actually, there's not really much they'd be too upset about, I don't think.
No, Amer would be one, wouldn't he?
Max Amer, I think George Williams, the one who I think he was Wales international in the past. Maybe him. He's gone to Cambridge. But bar that, there's not really a huge amount to worry about. I just think whether they've just packed it with loads of experienced players thinking that will do it, when actually maybe their players coming towards the end of the career, I don't know. A couple signed from Fleetwood as well. I think Sam Finley's one that I think a lot was expected of when he was younger, wasn't it? But they never quite got it out of him at Fleetwood. I mean, their current form, in terms of the last 6 games table, they're 5 places above United in 17th in that table. We're 22nd, which tells you all you need to know about our last 6 games form. Their records: drawn 1, lost 1 loss. One of those wins came against Walsall, who are one of the worst teams in the division right now as well. So, that's not really much to write home about. And actually, there are other 2 wins this season. I mean, Crawley are a team that anyone could really beat on their day, except us this season. And Oldham, I mean, it's like taking candy from a baby, isn't it, beating Oldham this season? Yes, it's not great. And discipline-wise then, I mean, I talked about us. Our discipline not being great this season, but theirs has been pretty dreadful. I think they've only had 16 yellow cards, which is only 2 more than we've had. But actually, they've had 3 red cards, and only Mansfield with 4 who had more red cards than them. So, they're one of those sides, aren't they? They're a club that really should be the top end of League One, challenging for the Championship. They are, I'm sure they'll hate me saying this, but they are the smaller of the 2 Bristol clubs. But Bristol's such a big place, it can comfortably hold 2 decent-sized clubs, can't it? Yeah. So they should be challenging the top end of League One, but actually as it is, they're under threat of potentially going back down to the National League again, the way things are going right now. Let's talk about United then, Dan. So this is a chance for you to give us a little bit of a thing. A bit of news you heard about injuries potentially.
Yeah, Magnus Norman was spotted on Monday on crutches with a protective boot, which, given the fact we had the trialist keeper for the Central League Cup, suggests we're potentially looking at bringing somebody in. There's been nothing from the club yet on any injury severity, time. You remember the start of last season, we thought he was going to be out for months. We signed Paul Farman and he was out for 3 weeks. So, it could just be, wrap it up and protect it because it's Summit. But we could certainly have a change in goalkeeper this week.
Yeah, and it clearly seems that they've looked at the young lads, Simons and Breeze, and felt 17 years old, probably not really fair to be throwing them in right now, especially when the person ahead of them's quite a young keeper as well in Lucas Jensen. On top of that, we obviously mentioned Josh Dixon. He's going to be out for another few weeks. And I think we're awaiting updates on McDonald and Gibson, although Beech did seem to suggest after the game that they'll probably be okay and they should be fit for this weekend. Not 100% on that. And Tristan Abraham's returned.
I would say Abrahams was back on the bench and
came on. Yeah. Didn't do much, but came. Well, there you go. Big changes to the team last week from Beech. Didn't really work. What do you do now as a manager? That's the question.
The tombola comes out. Last scene with Keith.
Yeah.
Keith's tombola comes out.
You'd imagine he's probably going to make changes again, isn't he? If McDonald and Gibson are fit, they come back in, don't they?
You would think so, yeah.
For Toure and I'm guessing Dinzey as well.
Yeah.
Do you bring Miller back in? I think you've got to bring Miller back in for a game like this.
You either do, or you play Whelan there and keep Feeney in the middle.
Yeah, possibly. I'd like to see Feeney have a run. I don't think Feeney did too badly last weekend.
Yeah. I think he's one of them who he just needs a run. He's not played a lot of football the last couple of years, and yes, he'll make the odd mistake while he gets used to playing again, but he's a hell of a player for me. So
yeah, he looks like a player who's just a good defender, isn't he? He just knows when to get rid and do stuff like that. So I like the look of him. I'd like to see him start.
I think he's going to be a bit of a slow burner like Hayden was, to be honest.
Yeah.
It'll just take him that little bit, but once he gets running, he'll be... Yeah.
So, I think in terms of defence and goalkeeper, we're looking potentially at 3 possible changes in there, with Jensen coming in for Norman if he's injured, Mellor at right back, and McDonald back into the centre of defence as well. And then midfield, he's still very reluctant to drop any of that midfield free, isn't he? I know we talk about how well they work together and how brilliant they've been, but there comes a point where you've got to just say, we've got to make a change here. One of you is going to be dropped. And I hate to say it's harsh on him, but it'll probably be Riley will be the one that will be dropped, won't he, I think, looking at things. Because Mellish has been great. I mean, he wasn't outstanding against Forest Green, but, he's been pretty good this season. Guys, your captain, your chances of dropping him are going to be slim unless he's really bad. So you think
that's it with Guy and Mellish getting long-term contracts. They're not going to get dropped, are they?
No, probably not. Yeah, it's a tough one.
And then we've got the enigma of Clough, haven't we?
How do you fit him in this team, Don? Genuinely, how do you fit him in? Because he's going to be our best player. You've got to have him in the team. You've got to try and get him in the team somehow.
I think the only way he plays is if we switch to sort of 4-4-1-1, 4-4-2, with him being the second striker.
It's that or a 4-2-3-1. But if you do that, your question is, do you play Mellish as one of the two, or do you do Riley or even put Whelan and Guy in there and try and keep it really tight and win the ball a lot?
Yeah, but I think one thing we'll both be agreed on: Brad Young deserves to start again. I think.
Oh, definitely. I think Brad Young, for me, you've got to give him a run in the team now.
Yeah,
give him a run. Like in a couple of games' time, let's say by the Newport game, or after the Newport game, he hasn't scored. Then maybe, you look to take him out and bring someone in. But for me, Abrahams isn't doing enough when he's playing. I know he's got his 3 goals so far this season, but since he last scored, he's not really done much for me.
No.
He's not really been involved, and I'm a little bit disappointed by him so far, to be honest. I'm not really seeing where he's going to fit in right now. It's a tough one to judge. And I mentioned, obviously, bring Miller back in right back. So I think Toure will probably come out if Gibson's fit, I think.
Yeah.
It's fair saying Dickinson's going to be starting because he looks a threat for us right now. So, it's what do you do, really? I agree with you. I think I'd like to maybe see us go to a 4-4-2 and give that a run for a few games. Have Dickinson as your left winger, Gibson as your right winger, and Clough and Young up front. I know they're not the biggest, but it might actually encourage us to get the ball down a little bit, possibly. Yeah. And obviously, if you play Mellish and Guy in midfield, Mellish can bomb on every now and then.
If you look at the crosses Dickinson makes as well, quite a lot of them are quite low, skiddy types. They suit the likes of Young and maybe Clough running on.
Yeah, definitely. It's more that Armour puts in the ones from deep, doesn't he? And
for
those, if they're coming from that deep, then Mellish is going to have time to get into the box.
And
get on them. But I think we're both on agreement there's probably going to be changes again. Is this make or break for him, do you think?
I don't think this week is. Simply because we're away. So if we got a point, folk are happy. I think Tranmere is a very big game, depending on result on Saturday.
I mean,
and then a week later we've got Oldham.
That's a huge game potentially. If he's not gone, if he hasn't been sacked before then, and he loses that game, that's the one where you're looking and you think, So this is a big chance. These next few games, he needs to get a decent run of points on the board, and maybe a win or two and a draw, maybe somewhere in there. Yeah, you see, I'm not sure if it isn't make or break for him, because Bristol Rovers are struggling down there at the bottom. We're on the same number of points as them. If they were to say win it comfortably by 2 or 3 goals, Bristol Rovers.
If it was Sutton-esque, then yes.
Yeah, I think he'd have to go at that point, because it would show to me that we're not learning anything. We're not getting ourselves away from trouble. And by all accounts, they've not been great in their games, Bristol Rovers. So there's no excuse not to at least have some sort of go and try and win the game, at the very least. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of just sacking managers for the sake of it, but for me, he hasn't shown any evidence that he knows how to get us out of trouble at the moment, or the fact that we're out of trouble.
The thing he's got to do is, if he gets a win, he needs to back it up with another win, and then another not long after.
Or at the very least, if you get a win, get an unbeaten run going. Even if it means you win, and then you draw your next 2, and then maybe win 1, that's fine. We can live with that. It's where you're not losing games, and at the moment, we don't look like a side that's going to win or even draw games. I mean, you look back, and only point we've got in recent games is Scunthorpe. And I'm not being funny, but you should be beating Scunthorpe.
Yeah, of course you should.
We really should be. There you go. Right, let's get into the match predictions then, Dan. You can go first. I've got Mike's as well to share with us in a minute. So
I'm going for a very lacklustre 1-1 draw. And I hope if Young plays, he gets his first league goal.
I was going to say I agree with you there. I'm going to go the same. But actually, I'm going to say it's going to be a bit chaotic, and I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw. It's just going to be mental. Neither team's going to remember how to defend.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for goals from... Mellor's going to get a gold. Young's going to get one.
A goal. What's he won?
I know. So yeah, Kelvin Mellor with a goal. Brad Young and Zach Clough will get one as well. So that's my goal scorers. So here's Mike's predictions. Let's share them with you now.
I am going to have a punt at the worst 0-0 that we have seen in a long, long time.
And that's it. Don't need a goal scorer.
Do you know something? That might not be a bad shout, eh?
No, it's probably not the worst shout you'll ever hear. Yeah. Will it be as bad as the Barnet 0-0? I'm not sure. It would, unless it has a special little bit of control from a player, he couldn't quite possibly be as good at that game, could he?
Yeah.
So there you go. So there's your match predictions for this week. None of us are overly positive. I mean, did you get it right last week? Did you go for a 2-0 defeat, or was that Mike that went for one? I think someone went for a defeat last week.
Possibly me.
Yeah. I really need to tally them up and see how we're all doing so far. I haven't got around to it yet, but there you go. Okay, Dan, it's the X-File section. So this is the bit where you run us through what's happened over the last week or so. Not a huge amount this week, but a few.
Not a huge amount, but a nice little Brucey bonus at the end. Yeah. Goals. Well, I'm gonna skip down the list first. Big George Tanner scored his first goal.
Yes.
For someone who can't play and can't take throw-ins,
can't take throw-ins. He's done all right, hasn't he?
He's played 3 games on the belt and he's scored his first championship goals.
Did you see that tackle he put in that game as well?
Oh, that was huge, wasn't it?
I mean, that was probably a 70-30 in the attacker's favour. Yeah. And he just went flying into it. He's like, I'm having this.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, honestly, well done to that. We're big fans of his, as everyone knows. He was great when he came on the pod to do an interview. And well done to the lad. And like I say, I still stand where I said. I think the way Beech spoke after he left was a bit poor, to be honest. But there you go.
More on that in the future, possibly. Jerry Yates got his first goal for a little while, I think it is, for Blackpool. Alex Gilliard popped up with a goal for Bradford. And in the same game, Andy Cook scored a penalty. Speaking of penalties, Ryan Bowman missed a penalty for Shrewsbury against Bolton. The man Carlisle fans love to hate now, old Harry McCurdy, absolutely turned the game round for Swindon at Bristol Rovers.
He can do that. He's that kind of player. He could do that if his head's screwed on.
He scored and he was involved in the other 2. He was just one of those games where he's in the mood and bosh.
He will be brilliant at Brunton Park in the reverse game against Swindon. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Paddy Madden scored for Stockport, and one of the regulars, Callum Higginbottom, for Kelty against Annan. And the Brucey bonus we mentioned, former Loney defender, James Brown, now at St Johnstone permanently, is in the Malta squad for the World Cup qualifiers versus Slovenia and Cyprus. And reliably informed, one of his grandfathers was Maltese, so good luck to James. And he's also, as part of his initiation when he joined up with the squad, he had all his hair shaved off.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not the usual sing-song.
I've actually seen a picture of it, but it's not my place to share it because it was obviously it's a private photo, but that sounds a bit dodgy actually, but it's one of those I wouldn't share without permission. So
yeah. Well, there you go.
But so not too much, but
there's a little bit in there, isn't there?
One today, Newport County, Darren Kelly, obviously is their version of David Holdsworth. He's just sort of said that there's a lot of interest in the job at Newport, and he'll be going through a thorough process to get a new manager there.
I noticed that Mark Cooper was linked with that job, wasn't he?
Yeah, and would it be a big surprise to see someone like Paul Tisdale end up there?
Possibly not. It's a good opportunity for them because they've not got too bad a squad there, and I wasn't that surprised to see Flynn leave. I think he's probably done the right thing. He's probably looking for, I've been in charge for 4 years now. It's getting a bit stale. I need to move on to something new. And To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised.
What we should have done with Greg Abbott before he went that summer before his last season.
He should have left there, and he probably would have gone on to another job somewhere else.
And
done all right. And I wouldn't be surprised if Flynn himself is sitting there looking at this weekend's game and thinking, if Carlisle win that game, Joey Barton gets the axe. Might be a job for me there. Just on the road.
Or would it be too soon?
Possibly.
It'd look a bit bad on him, wouldn't it?
Possibly, but then the opportunity wasn't there, was it? So it wouldn't be like suddenly, it's only come up. But
or let's just start some Chinese whispers. Maybe he's heard a whisper.
Possibly.
Something may happen.
I mean, some people have sort of said, I'd love to see him as Carlisle manager, but he's not going to move this
He's not going to come up here.
No, his family's very settled. He's only a young manager, about 39, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's not going to move all the way up here. But similar to the way that Tisdale didn't move for so long at Exeter because of his family, did he? And then eventually had to because he didn't have much choice. But yeah, so there you go. That's this week's episode, Dan. Thanks again for joining me. Thanks again to our sponsors, the London branch. And remember, you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, whether it's Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your pods. Just search for Brunton Bugle, and you should be able to get the pod from there. Follow us on social media. That's the other key thing as well. We're on
that's
Twitter.
if you ever remember to update the Facebook page.
I promise you I will do this week.
Yeah.
That's a promise. So yeah, we've got a Facebook page, which I don't update very often. We've got a Twitter feed, which Dan does update quite often. We've basically follow us there. We're on the Be Just Unfair Not Facebook group. Actually, I was going to mention about that. I forgot to mention in the episode, but we'll be covering it next time anyway. But they had a vote on there about whether people wanted Beech to stay or go. I think last time they did it, when there was issues at the start of the year, I think it was 75% in favour of him staying. This time, it's about 67% in favour of him going.
Yeah.
So it's not looking great in terms of the fans backing for Beechy right now. We'll map our listeners down. We have two new countries.
Both with the same letter.
Indeed. One of them was actually last week, and I forgot to mention it, but Iceland and Israel. Yeah, there you go. We've got an Icelandic listener. Thank you to whoever you are for listening.
And we think the Israeli may be to do with the Forest Green pod fellas.
Yes, because they mentioned the fact that they'd had a guy from Israel over in New York and watched the game with them. So
it may not be. It
might not be. It might not be. Shalom to you.
Chances are it is.
Shalom to our new Israeli listener. Yeah. There you go.
Lovely place, Tel Aviv. I've been. It's lovely.
Yeah, never been myself, but I wouldn't mind going one day. Okay, then. I mean, upcoming episodes, we've obviously got the preview of the Bristol Rovers game next week, and we'll do a little mini episode when we head to the Newport game as well, if we can fit that in. We'll see what we're doing in terms of availability. And I need to arrange to record a couple more of the CUFC 11 ones. In fact, we'll maybe do those coming up soon. One thing I did forget to mention, if you've all made it this far, is actually you can watch the game this weekend against Bristol Rovers, can't you?
Yeah, it's international weekend, so iFollows allowed.
Yeah, so basically get yourself an eye. If you like enjoying suffering on a Saturday afternoon from the comfort of your own sofa, get yourself a £10 paid for the match pass for the game. I've already paid for it because I'm an idiot, but there you go. I'm sure you've probably found better things to do, Dan, this weekend.
Well, I'm working in the morning, but I might be back in time to maybe pop down Carlisle City. It depends on the weather.
Yeah, there you go. Dan, thanks once again for joining me. Always appreciate it. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.